Fasten your seatbelt. I am taking you for the ride of your life. I'm going to show you what this car can really do. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Hang on.
Okay.
Here we go.
Hold on to your butts.
Forget him, kid.
To infinity and beyond!
It might be a tumor.
It's not a tumor. Not a tumor at all.
So you can go ahead and ask me what you're going to ask me, and my natural response could be to get offended.
Well, fine, let's talk about it.
Any thoughts of your own on this matter? Or is that your thing? You come into a bar, you read some obscure passage, and then pretend you pawn it off as your own idea just to impress some girls?
Just another American who saw too many movies as a child.
Yeah, well, that's just like your opinion, man.
All right.
You're listening to the 30-something movie podcast. One movie each week, 30 years in the making. You are listening to the 30-something movie podcast, and these co-hosts represent a clear and present danger to podcasting.
Oh boy.
Wow. Yeah, I think we do. I don't know. Last episode, I called us experts, and I'm really trying to backtrack on that because I don't want to leave anybody with unreasonable expectations.
Unreasonable expectations.
That's a clear and present danger to us.
I feel like that should go on our T-shirts. Unreasonable expectations.
Agreed.
Yeah, because that's a rousing team motto right there.
Mm-hmm.
The 30-something movie podcast softball team. First of all, I'm not sure how we're winning with only 4 or 5 of us, but
it's 4 or 5. I have no idea.
Well, we can all play both offense and defense, and that should cover.
We're only playing right field. I don't know.
It's a 5-on-5 softball.
Schoolyard rules.
Yeah, there you go.
Hit it to right field, you're out.
Yeah, it's 5-on-5 stick.
And you got to go get the ball.
And then I'll take my ball and I'll go home because I don't want to play anymore. This is the 30-something movie podcast. I am John Reed, as I typically tend to be. And I have with me this time around, as always, Bo, the Love Fest Warmbolt. Bo, how you doing?
I am well, John. How are you?
I'm good.
Hi, Bo.
Hi, Pat.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, my liege. Yeah. Now I just want to go play old video games like we were talking about last time.
I think old video games are the way.
Mm-hmm. And Bo, being the problem person who introduced me to the idea that there are old video games to be purchased.
Yeah. Yeah. I have no defense for that, Senator. I did it.
Yeah. That's all right. It's okay. Guilty, but we still appreciate you, and
thank you.
Probably now I will probably try to go purchase some of that because why not?
Exactly.
Yeah. This time it is clear and present danger. A Jack Ryan story. A little bit like a Star Wars story, but a Jack Ryan story. Spoiler alert, we spoil freely around here, so as we talk, just be warned about that. Make sure you visit our website, 30podcast.com, where you can leave a rating, leave a voicemail, and become a co-executive producer via Patreon. We did just have somebody actually leave a 5-star review for the show on iTunes, so that was really, I'd say iTunes, Apple Podcasts. Apparently, I live in 2014, so...
Hey, 2014 was cool, man.
Yeah, it was fine. It was.
Hey, man, things are good in 2014.
That was back when the world was young.
Something like that.
Yeah. When the world was new, and I'll show you something that can make you feel young again.
Hey, now.
Okay.
Let's take it easy.
Okay, let's walk some of that back. How was the 5-star review?
You're taking this to a bad place. I just want to show you my Genesis cave.
I don't know where to go with any of that. I'm
just gonna sit here.
What I did in there, I did in a day.
Avoidance.
Oh, wow. It took you a day.
A whole day.
It took a whole day.
That might be impressive in its own right, huh?
Can I cook or can't I?
I don't know.
I don't know where this conversation is going.
I don't know.
Hours would seem like days.
Hours would seem like days. I'm worried that we're making an adult version of Star Trek 2.
We're getting close.
I apologize.
But do you really?
Nope.
I didn't think so.
It's the typical non-apology apology.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Anyway. Okay, I got to stop planning the rest of that movie now. Yes. So anyway, we're here to talk about Clear and Present Danger.
We are.
Apparently, that's what we're here for. So yeah, so we're gonna get on into this one just really, really quickly. We have a couple of different segments. The way we typically structure the show is we've got some trivia pursuits we talk about at the beginning here. We'll give you a little bit of background on the movie, some info, and then we do a little bit of some trivia, quick synopsis of the movie. Major moments is we try to summarize the movie in about 10 moments that make up the plot. Just if you haven't seen it or haven't seen it lately, just gonna remind you what's going on in this. Then we delve into our deeper thoughts, our opinions on this one, and we tend to wrap it all up with 3 questions that are somewhat and mostly loosely related to some aspect of the movie in some way. And there's almost always typically a food question. Tonight is no exception. And I apologize for the food question because it was stupid. Because there's too many options.
Well, there is, and it depends on how broad you go. I think I went pretty broad, and I think I stumbled upon at least a satisfactory answer.
I'm going to Texas in a week and a half, and I could eat every meal.
Oh, yeah.
Every meal.
That adds another layer.
Yeah.
For sure.
Oh, it'll add another layer or 2.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Like a tree getting older. I add some rings. Some of those rings are going to be tortilla infused. All right. Clear and Present Danger. This one came out on August 3rd, 1994, rated PG-13, with a runtime of 2 hours, 21 minutes, directed by Philip Noyce, who did... Noyce.
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 I wonder if anytime he makes a movie, people are like, Noyce.
Noyce.
Yeah. Only the really obnoxious late 90s, early 2000s people that know him. Let's see. Patriot Games and Salt. Writers for this one were Donald E. Stewart, Stephen Zalian, and John Milius. Stewart did Missing and The Hunt for Red October. Zalian did Schindler's List and Gangs of New York. Milius did Apocalypse Now and Conan the Barbarian. Producers for this one were Mace Neufeld and Robert Ream. Neufeld did The Hunt for Red October and Patriot Games. Ream did The General's... Nope, let's back that up. Ream was a producer for The General's Daughter, the movie. It's a movie called The General's Daughter.
Much better.
Not going to say that a different way.
I wouldn't recommend it.
Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. Anyway, he also did The Sum of All Fears. Composer was James Horner. Did Braveheart. Speaking of Star Trek, The Wrath of Khan, James Horner. He did Braveheart and Titanic and Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan. Cinematographer was Donald McAlpine, who did Romeo plus Juliet and Moulin Rouge. Editor was Neil Travis, who did Terminator 2, Judgment Day, and Patriot Games. Production company was Paramount Pictures. Budget $62 million. Box office $215.9 million. It done well. Metrics gives it a 69%. Nice. And CinemaScore gives it an A. Characters in this one, Harrison Ford plays Jack Ryan. He was in Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark and Blade Runner. Willem Dafoe played John Clark. He was in Platoon and The Last Temptation of Christ. Ann Archer was Kathy Ryan. She was in Fatal Attraction and Patriot Games. All right, here's the one I was talking about earlier. Joaquim de Almeida, who played Colonel Felix Cortez.
Mm-hmm.
He was in Desperado and Fast Five.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Every movie I see him in, my brain refers to him as evil Phil Hartman.
Oh, God, that's pretty good.
Ah, yeah.
Because he's always a villain. And every time in fact, I saw him in a movie that was supposed to take place after Phil Hartman had died, and I did a double take. I was like, wait, what? Like, first of all,
Phil Hartman's?
First of all, since when does Phil Hartman have a kind of a Spanish accent? Since when is he a villain in espionage type movies? And since when is he still alive?
Details, John.
Yeah.
You're getting wrapped up in these details that I don't think.
But every time I happen to spot Joaquim de Almeida, I look at him and I go, that's evil Phil Hartman. And it's a problem. I understand it's a problem. It's a problem I'm unable to overcome. So, yeah, I will. Henceforth, you shall be known as Evil Phil Hartman.
It's like those video games that we were talking about last week, the one-on-one fighting games when you both pick the same character.
Yeah.
They have to change it slightly, you know.
You know, you hope that they go with a slight color change in the costume rather than the skin tone change.
Yeah, that doesn't happen. I mean, these games, this is late 80s, early 90s. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm fine with Yoshi either being yellow, green, red, blue, or purple, but some of those other changes in those older games, a little problematic.
A little bit.
Ever so slightly.
Doesn't need to be this way.
It does not. It's not how any of this works. Henry Czerny was Robert Ritter. He was in Mission Impossible and The Tudors TV series. Harris Yulin played James Cutter. He was in Scarface and Training Day. Donald Moffat, who died in 2018, played President Bennett. He was in The Thing and Regarding Henry. Miguel Sandoval played Ernesto Escobedo. He was in Jurassic Park and the TV series Medium. Benjamin Bratt played Captain Ramirez. He was in Miss Congeniality and Doctor Strange. Raymond Cruz was Domingo Chavez. He was in Training Day and Breaking Bad TV series. Thora Birch played Sally Ryan. She was in American Beauty and Ghost World. And James Earl Jones played Admiral James Greer. He was in Coming to America and The Hunt for Red October. I keep noticing that James Earl Jones is very old now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to make me sad someday soon.
Yeah.
Because I feel like once you get to that point, it could be any day now. I mean, granted, it could be any day for any of us, but
right.
I don't know.
Well, how old is he?
Isn't he like 91?
Something like that's yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing to me. And it's something I should be aware of and not fall into that trap, but I just have a habit of seeing these guys forever young, you know, like how they appear in the movies.
Right.
And it's like, oh yeah, that's right. They're real people. They age.
Right. Well, and I say thankfully he was willing to do it. So I think that's fine, but I'm glad that he gave permission to be able to record his voice and to be able to use computer technology. We have the technology. We can rebuild his voice to continue using the Darth Vader voice in the foreseeable future, even after his passing.
Okay.
So I know there's all kinds of stuff with people not wanting like AI copies of themselves as actors and things like that. But he agreed to it. Like he's like, yeah, absolutely. You know, I'll sign a thing, and I'm sure he's getting paid for it, or his estate will probably get paid for it. But you know, he has said you can continue to use my voice, and I think he's recorded a ton of stuff so that they would be able to engineer whatever dialogue they would want to engineer moving forward if they continue to have a Darth Vader character show up in any Star Wars games, movies, TV shows, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So
yes.
Yeah. So all right. Quick little trivia here. There was some fun trivia stuff for this one. The drug lord mansion that was destroyed by the missiles, the rocket-propelled missiles, the shoulder-mounted rocket-propelled missiles, was a real... Or I'm sorry, no. The missile that they dropped from the fighter jet was a real brick-and-mortar residence in Mexico, purchased by the filmmakers from a divorcee who had an unpleasant memory of the place. So the filmmakers bought the mansion, destroyed it. The divorcee kept the land and presumably built a new house after clearing out all the rubble.
Well, there you go.
That's priceless.
That's outstanding. That's outstanding. Yes, I got this house in the divorce. I don't want it. I have bad memories here. Please blow it up with your American bombs.
Right.
Okay.
All righty. I can do that.
Yes, Miley. A scene in which the scene in this is what I'm thinking of. The convoy of Suburbans is attacked by the drug cartel is now actually used as a training video in U.S. government agencies.
Oh,
this is what you don't do.
Right.
Don't get everybody dead.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know it's simple, but
yeah. I mean that
ambush scene was quite a scene, wasn't it?
That U.S. government driving test is really rough.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now here, would you come to a complete stop? Now, what happens if you park your SUV? What happens if you park the Suburban on an incline? What do you do? Okay, all right, now turn left. Now avoid the shoulder-mounted rocket-propelled grenade. Which
and no
way-
matter what, the people are yelling at you to turn around or back up.
Yes.
Back up. Back up. We just backed up once.
And whatever you do, be in the same Suburban with Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's not guaranteed you're going to make it, but your chances go way up.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The
I
only
think we can
guarantee
extend that and say, be in the Suburban with the actor whose name is above the title.
Yes.
I think that's the rule there.
red shirts never die.
I'm glad that these were government vehicles and not rental cars, because I can see him going back to like the Hertz desk later on in the movie, and they're like, your car got blown up. And he's like, my car got blown up, and I just there was nothing I could do about it, and I could just see the guy behind the desk is played by Tommy Lee Jones. I don't care.
Get out of my Suburban.
Yeah. I didn't blow up that Suburban. I don't care.
I don't care.
You still owe us for it. You didn't buy the extra protection. It was only
You thought your credit card offered plenty of insurance.
right. In Tom Clancy's novel, Jack Ryan breaks into Ritter's safe to obtain the documents. The filmmakers thought that was maybe a bit too boring and decided to create the dueling computer scene instead, which is kind of a fun scene where he's going through and he's deleting the documents and he's trying to access them. And since we're calling it a dueling computer scene, I really appreciated when they had the banjos playing in the background.
Yes.
I thought that was a nice touch.
The only thing that didn't make sense with that scene is, what is Ritter getting out of that notebook? Is he getting the names of the files so he can type it out? Or is he getting a code he needs to delete the file? It just didn't make sense.
I think he was getting the names of the files.
But Jack was smart enough to call up a directory of the file.
I think Ritter was maybe of a certain age and
okay.
writes down all of his passwords in a spiral notebook.
Okay. All right. I will acquiesce to that option.
Yeah. All of the passwords are kept in the notes document on his phone, which is unprotected by any kind of passwords or encryption.
Okay.
All right. Done.
You got a real pretty hard drive.
Oh, God.
I have no words.
There are no words to fit his crime. Yeah, that's true.
No words at all. Moving quickly on, the Oval Office was originally built for the movie Dave from 1993.
Oh, nice.
Oh, okay.
Thought it looked a tad familiar, but again, we have been watching The West Wing and other
I'll
shows.
say it is
in
the
which-
Oval Office.
I mean, how
think
different
it's-
can it look?
Right.
Right.
Some may be ovaler than others.
Slightly oblong.
Yes. Excerpts, so we've talked about this before. Excerpts from James Horner's score were taken directly from a piece of music from Aliens and Patriot Games, which were also scored by Horner, which they are also apparently excerpts reused by Horner are direct lifts from a, let me make sure I say this, I'm going to try to say this correctly, Adagio of the Guyane Ballet Suite by Aram Khachaturian.
There you go.
Which was also used in the Jupiter probe scenes in 2001: A Space Odyssey. So while we have discussed in the past James Horner's proclivity for reusing his own music, it sounds like this also was lifted directly from another classical piece of music. So it's the age-old question of, did James Horner plagiarize himself? And the answer may or may not be yes, and or do we care? Nah.
Yeah.
Not really. Is the music good? Yes.
Yes.
And apparently the book is, and I haven't read the book. I was going to ask you guys if you have. The book is much more about John Clark than it is Jack Ryan. And in fact, Ryan doesn't even appear in the first 100 pages and does not become a major character until about the halfway point. Have either of you guys read the book for this one?
Yes.
You have? Okay.
I have, yeah.
Okay. Both of you have. Okay. Are there other major differences that are worth noting between the book and the movie?
As with most Clancy movies, the book is so dense. There's usually a B and C plot that get cut for the movie.
Like this could basically be its own trilogy if you included everything.
Yeah, and some of that is Clark stuff, because if I remember correctly, and Pat, the lines are gonna blur between this and Without Remorse, but
you get
some of the Clark backstory in this, don't you?
Yeah, you do. And, you kind of find out what he was and what he did. And this is, I'm interrupting. Go ahead, finish your thought, Bo. But
No. That's what I was hoping. Yeah, there's some Clark backstory, which is kind of it's the first story, but it's the B story. It's not the most exciting story. There, I think you spend a lot of time meeting Chavez too, because you're also starting to set up further Clancy stories in Rainbow Six.
Yes.
This is a big jumping off point for the Clark stuff and the Rainbow Six stuff that's going to come after this.
Yeah.
So you spend time there. It's been so long since I've read this. I feel like there's still one more plot I'm missing, but
that
real quick.
I think you're right, and I think you're right in that the books are so dense, and there's just so much there. And not only you're mentioning the plots, I'm just going to talk about. They're talking about like military engagements or world affairs or something, some such thing they're talking about, and they just can bring out the nuance and the depth to those things. Where in the movies, just for the sake of, they just have to simplify it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think. I don't know. I think a couple things, but I think that almost like now, especially with the production value as it is, I think like a television show would sometimes tell these stories of these books better. We used to back in the day call it a miniseries, but now that's changed. But like 10, 15 episodes to break down the book fully, I think would really do it justice.
I mean, the president doesn't even get a name in the book. I'm just looking at some quick summaries. I don't believe Dan Murray dies in the book because he shows up again later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Robbie Jackson shows up, and there's some more stuff on the boat. Because Robbie Jackson, isn't he the captain of the boat that seizes the ship or something? Because he's out there. No, he can't be because he's not a coastie. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But I know he's in the book and he's not in the movie.
So I'm just going to say this. I think, and I'm not using this to judge the movie at all. It's just almost impossible to take all the nuance and depth of the book and put it in a movie, right? But that was a struggle for me. Is I would read these books, I would love the books, I'd see the movie, and it was like, what am I missing? What am I missing? Yeah. Now, having time to look back, okay. And the first line says it all, based on a book by Tom Clancy. Okay, that's awesome. And so what do you get? Well, you don't get all the depth of the book. You don't get the book, but that's okay. You've got an awesome live action movie. And I think that's the piece that I struggled with thinking of as a kid, but it's like, I'm not disparaging the movie at all. It's just a different, it's telling the story in a different way.
Yeah. I struggled with it even more in Sum of All Fears.
Okay. Yeah.
Because they dumped a whole subplot that I thought was fantastic, but you couldn't have done both in the movie. Like, I accept that, sort of. Right. This one I actually felt did a better job of incorporating the plot devices. They just didn't do as much character work as the book did.
Right. And I think the characters, well, I'm just going to maybe echo that, but they're like one-dimensional characters, right? But in the book, there's backstory, there's reason. John Clark in this one, I mean, was played so well. I keep forgetting the actor's name that played him. But I mean, the John Clark character, Willem Dafoe, yeah, I just could not think of his name, is great. But I think in the book, John Clark's like a bigger dude. Like, he's almost like a Jack Reacher type guy.
Oh, yeah, he is a bad mother.
Right.
Shut your mouth.
And I think too, like that whole team that goes in, they insert multiple teams, right? And so there's just more detail and all that just has to get simplified for an awesome action movie, right? They just don't have the time to do that.
Right.
That would be the thing. Well, and we'll get into this more with like deeper thoughts. I'm just kind of letting everything come out. But I mean, it's almost like, could a team of guys just go in with no support? Like, where's the base? Where's the quick reaction force if they get in trouble? Where's their resupply come from? They don't show you those things. You're just left to assume or whatever. But I mean, they don't show you those things because they just don't have time, because it's a movie and you got to be done in X amount of minutes.
Yeah.
So, no, I love it. Great movie. Love reading the book. I just, I just got to make sure I'm wrapping my head around the fact that it's two different ways to tell the same story.
Yeah. All right. A quick synopsis for this one. In a world where power is cloaked in shadows, Jack Ryan uncovers a conspiracy that reaches the highest levels of government. Caught in a deadly game of cat and mouse, Ryan, along with John Clark, Admiral James Greer, and Kathy Ryan, must navigate a labyrinth of lies and danger to expose the truth in clear and present danger.
Some say the greatest threat to America
These drug cartels represent a clear and present danger to the national security of the United States.
comes from other nations. Some say the greatest threat to America.
The course of action I'd suggest is a course of action I can't suggest.
Comes from within.
We are 2 minutes to target. Looks like we've got our own little war.
Harrison Ford is Jack Ryan.
I'm appointing Ryan the acting deputy director, intelligence.
The finding clearly states that our assistance is limited to supply and advice only.
He doesn't know about it, Bobby.
No troops, then.
No troops.
He needs to know nothing. He's gonna know nothing.
The laws he swore to uphold are at risk.
The explosion here rocked the ranch of Enrique Rojas less than an hour ago.
You said it was going to be a surgical strike. That's a kid they just brought out on NBC. Why was I left out of it?
You see everything in black and white.
Not black and white. Right and wrong.
The honor he is determined to defend is at stake.
I'm afraid if I dig any deeper, no one's gonna like what I find.
Want to know about politics in Washington? I can explain it in 4 words. Watch your back, Jack.
He's coming to you with no security. Once Ryan's gone, we're back online.
Based on the #1 best-selling novel.
There are troops, Jack. I didn't know that. You know I didn't know that.
Harrison Ford.
You went before Congress and you got the money for it. You went before Congress and you lied to...
I never lied to Congress.
You lied.
Willem Dafoe.
I'm on a plane. I'm gonna kill him.
Anne Archer.
Are you going away again?
Be careful.
And James Earl Jones.
You took an oath. You gave your word to the people of the United States.
Who authorized this?
I think it's time the whole thing went away. Then it should go away.
I will not let you dishonor their memories by telling me you had nothing to do with it.
How dare you come into this office and bark at me like some little junkyard dog? I am the President of the United States.
How dare you, sir?
Paramount Pictures presents this summer's most electrifying motion picture, Clear and Present Danger.
He said it! He said it!
I can't
Yes.
not go into this. I mean, that's the actual.
That's like what they used. And it's like, it's in the first 5, well, okay, maybe not 5 minutes, but kind of.
Yeah.
Like it's early.
Yeah. It was very early on.
It's funny because I remembered that was in the movie, but I did not remember it was that early in the movie.
Yeah.
And it hit and I just busted out laughing. And this was one of the few movies that my lovely wife decided to watch with me.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, what is so funny? And then I had to go into the whole thing and she just rolled her eyes at me as she should. You know,
there are no crimes to fit. There are no punishment to fit your crime.
Indeed.
Yeah. Yeah. Other than an eye roll, which is appropriate.
Which is what I deserve. Yeah.
Yeah. An eye roll for an eye. All right. Major moments for this one. We've kind of condensed everything down to 10 major moments. Very much not the length and breadth and depth of the novel that you guys were talking about. But for the movie itself, we've tried to narrow it down to 10 major moments that give you a flyby of the plot in case you haven't seen it in a while, or if you haven't seen it. A U.S. Coast Guard vessel discovers a yacht with some evidence indicating the murder of a businessman, Peter Hardin, and his family by Colombian crew members, revealing Hardin's money laundering for one of the cartels, which represent a clear and present danger to the United States. President Bennett, upon learning of his friend Hardin's murder, discreetly authorizes a covert operation against the Cali cartel led by James Cutter. With Admiral James Greer undergoing cancer treatment, Jack Ryan is promoted and unknowingly supports the funding for a secret military operation in Colombia. Under Cutter's direction, CIA operatives John Clark and Robert Ritter form Reciprocity, a special forces team to combat the cartel. During a mission in Colombia, Jack Ryan's convoy is ambushed on orders from Colonel Felix Cortez, or Evil Phil Hartman, resulting in significant American casualties. Reciprocity carries out an airstrike on a cartel meeting narrowly missed by Escobedo and Cortez, but does kill women and children as well, does kill civilians. So Cutter makes a clandestine agreement with Cortez to end American operations in exchange for Cortez's promise to assume cartel leadership and curtail drug shipments to the U.S., and also for SNL tickets. After discovering U.S. involvement in Colombia, Ryan accesses classified information revealing the extent of the covert operations and Cutter's betrayal. Ryan and Clark, overcoming misunderstandings about their allegiances, launch a rescue operation to save the remaining Reciprocity members from Cortez's forces. And then finally, Ryan confronts President Bennett about the illegal operation, later testifies before Congress, refusing to participate in the cover-up and exposing the true nature of the covert actions in Colombia. I think in terms of the movie itself, that should pretty much cover the basic plot of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's all kinds of other stuff here and there, and there's the whole plot of really a plot, but there is a little plot thread, I guess, of Cortez's relationship with she was the FBI, wasn't she?
The FBI director's secretary.
Yes.
And that the whole point of that was obviously so he could find out the man's schedule and get any intelligence he could.
Right. It's rough going being an FBI secretary, because not too long ago we had been watching the TV series The Americans.
Okay.
And spoiler alert, if you haven't watched that one, things don't work out well for one of the FBI secretaries.
Okay.
So that's a rough job position to be in. Probably not ideal. Yeah. But yeah, there's that whole plot, and then I certainly did not expect her to get the old neck crack when he showed up in that cabin and just kind of did the old head fake there.
I don't know why I was not expecting it to go that way.
Yeah, neither was she.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah. So some fun moments in the movie with his kids, and a little bit of a callback to. I think there were some callbacks to Hunt for Red October. I think one of the moments his daughter is talking to the little boy and asks what he wants for breakfast, and she gives him the options of toast or toast.
Yep.
Which I think he had given his daughter the options in Hunt for Red October of toast or toast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So some nice little callbacks. And his son is playing with the submarine in the kitchen sink.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. That's almost...
It doesn't float.
It's not supposed to float. It's funny because it makes that almost like doubly funny. It's like a little bit of an Inception joke because it's Harrison Ford. And moments like that where it's like, it doesn't float, it's not supposed to float, takes me back to it's the Ark of the Covenant. That's the Ark of the Covenant. Are you sure? Pretty sure.
Pretty sure.
Yeah. So it's like, it's jokes within jokes within jokes.
Ooh, Inception.
Russian nesting jokes.
Ooh.
All right. I think it's probably time for some deeper thoughts on this one. We can talk about, we've already started a bit talking about how we feel about this, but let's go slightly deeper. Let's dive deeper into the covert operations of this one.
Ooh,
right.
There we go.
That's right.
That's the stuff.
And now, deep thoughts.
I have an opinion on this matter.
Don't mince words, Bones. What do you really think?
I like it a lot.
Wow. It's very deep. Thank you.
I don't always have deep thoughts, but sometimes, just sometimes, I do have deep thoughts about things. Probably a dumb question to ask. I'm not going to ask if you like this, because I feel like you do like this movie. When was the first time you saw it, and where does this rank within some of the other Tom Clancy movies?
I don't know about in the theater, because I would have been a little young, but Certainly, as soon as it came out on VHS or HBO or one of those things back in the day.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then as far as where it ranks, gosh, that's tough. Three. If we're talking about movies, 3.
Okay.
I could.
Okay.
You could talk me into reordering it if we want to add the recent Amazon show, but for now, I'm going to say 3.
Okay. What are the
Pat,
what
where
are the
does
other
it
two
live
movies?
for you? Oh, Red October and Patriot Games.
Okay.
Patriot Games in this one could flip flop depending on my mood, but Red October is my jam. So
okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with Bo. I Hunt for Red October. I
some things in here don't react too well to bullets.
That's right. I'm going to try my Sean Connery
I'm one of them.
impersonation again, and how bad that was in the past. Hunt for Red October is going to be the best. You're right; these are interchangeable. I mean, this and Patriot Games. I think the Irish Connection. I've always liked Patriot Games a whole lot, but rewatching this movie, and again, this kind of is my earlier point where I don't want to judge the film based on the book, and I haven't read the book recently. So going back to the movie, it was like, oh wow, this is a fantastic movie. So I'm just gonna dodge that question, John. I'm just gonna say yes.
Hit the button.
Pat just rejected your question. There we go. I had to dust that one off a little bit. It'd been a while.
Yeah.
For me, I think the first time I saw this, there was a stretch, it's probably in high school. There was a stretch of time where when we would try to find a movie to watch, we would go on, we'd have like a theme, like for several weeks in a row, it would be John Travolta movies, or for several weeks in a row, it'd be Harrison Ford movies, or whatever. So I feel like this was during the stretch of time where I was telling myself, okay, you love Harrison Ford in Indiana Jones and Star Wars and Blade Runner. There are a ton of his other movies you have not seen before. So I feel like either late middle school, early on in high school, all in the span of probably a few months, I watched The Fugitive, Patriot Games, Clear and Present Danger. You know, I watched Air Force One. That would have been probably about the time it was coming out in theaters, too, because it was probably like 96, 97. But there was probably a stretch, I would say maybe like freshman, sophomore year in high school. There was a stretch of time where I was like, I need to get caught up on all the Harrison Ford movies that are really, really popular and that I haven't seen.
And there were a lot of them in that time.
Oh, a lot of them in that time. Yeah, a lot of them at that point. And I remember going to the theater with my dad to see, what was that movie called with Brad Pitt? The Devil's Own?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. But yeah, there was a whole stretch of Harrison Ford movies kind of at that point, but I had not seen up to that point The Fugitive and these Jack Ryan movies and some of the other stuff. So that would have been the time that I would have seen this. Wouldn't have seen it in the theater. I don't think I've actually seen any of the Jack Ryan movies in the theater. Because the only one, by the time I would have watched the other ones, the only other one that I would have even thought of seeing in the theater was The Sum of All Fears. And I watched that one. We were in Nashville for a wedding. Bo, I'll let you guess what wedding that was.
I can only imagine.
And that was, I believe I watched that because my wife was invited to the bachelorette party. I was not invited to the bachelor party because didn't know the groom. And so that was the evening, and I've told this story before, the evening that I scared the people in the movie theater because they thought I was from corporate, and the same day that I got kicked out of the Chuck E. Cheese because I made other parents uneasy because I was an adult by myself in Chuck E. Cheese playing skee-ball.
I love everything about that.
The end of that night was me going back to the hotel because at that point I was like, all right, I freaked out the people at the movie theater. I had my dinner. I went to a used bookstore. I went to Chuck E. Cheese. I was asked to leave the Chuck E. Cheese. Came back to the hotel. I'm like, well, what else am I going to do? And I turned on the TV and Sum of All Fears was on. And so that's when I saw Sum of All Fears. But I don't think I've ever seen any of the Jack Ryan movies in the theater. So they all would have been home video viewings for me.
It's funny you say that. I'm not sure I have either, because age for most of them. Some of All Fears I was disappointed in because I knew they'd cut so much. And the Chris Pine one was Amazon.
Okay. Some of All Fears I would have considered going to see it in the theater, but I think I know exactly what happened with that one. They played that stupid trailer so much on TV that all I can still hear in my head is, "The bomb is in play." And it got to the point where you hear it so often, I'm like, Ben Affleck, shut up. I don't care. Let the bomb go off. I don't care.
You're not the only one to have thought that over the years.
Yeah.
For multiple reasons.
Right. The bomb is in play. Yeah, I know. I saw this trailer like 5 minutes ago during the other commercial break.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the marketing blitz was not lacking for that movie.
No.
Mm-mm.
So yeah, let me just kind of ask you guys in general. I know we've kind of talked about this before too with Patriot Games and with Hunt for Red October. Do you feel like, and you may have kind of addressed some of this before anyway, but do you feel like when they adapt these movies, so we've talked about how there's so much more to Hunt for Red October than is actually in the movie, and same with all of these. Do you feel like, is there one of these Jack Ryan movies where you feel like even though they had to cut out a lot, this one did the best job of representing what that book really brought to the table? Like, is there one of these movies that is a better book to film adaptation than the others? And it may not be
honestly,
your favorite,
it might be this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because there's a whole chunk in Red October that isn't in the movie.
Yeah.
That take that movie to a whole new level when you read that book.
Yeah.
Patriot Games is pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it might be this one or Patriot Games. And gosh, I haven't read the Patriot Games book in forever. I feel like Patriot Games, there's a lot more IRA stuff and a lot more stuff when they're still in England. And a lot more stuff with Robbie back on campus once they get back to America. So yeah, I'm going to say this one might be might have had the ability to adapt best.
Okay.
Because it just wasn't so much for them to cut. But I mean, it's tough because as we've already said a couple times, they're just so thick in content and character and dialogue and sometimes even just in technical jargon. I mean,
right.
Red October, you spend it could be 10 pages with Skip Tyler talking about the submersible.
Right.
He goes on for quite a while.
Right.
And that's because that was Clancy's thing. He literally wrote nonfiction books called Submarine and Aircraft Carrier. He wasn't messing around when it came to that stuff.
The creep can write exposition, man. Yeah. Is there? Oh, go ahead.
Well, I'm just thinking about the question, and I think Bo said it exactly right. I'm just going to echo that and say I don't think you can pick one because when the movies boil down to very simple things, right? This one, we've had enough of the drug dealers.
In fact, they represent a clear and sorry, I had to just
right, exactly. Which that's like an I don't know if this means anything, but that's like an official government phrase, right? This is clear and present, like that's a thing. And I want to say that like all of these things, they're based in some reality. And did any of you guys read the book Killing Pablo? I think Mark Bowden wrote it.
No, it's not one that rings a bell.
It's Pablo Escobar.
Oh, nice.
Who I think you guys are familiar with. But let me preface for the listeners. I think you guys are familiar with as it like not on a personal level.
Not on a personal level. I mean, it's
He
been a while
sends me
since
a
we.
box of cigars at Christmas.
I mean,
I don't know what you're talking about.
it's been a while since we were in the pickleball league together, but
yeah. Well,
our parents used to have tea and play bridge every weekend.
But I mean, according to the book, and I think it was the same guy that wrote Black Hawk Down. I think it was Mark Bowden wrote it. It was basically covert U.S. military personnel that went down and hunted this guy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In the late 80s. You know, so that's kind of like the story that we're getting told right here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's funny they make a point early on to say that it's Cali, not Medellin.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're trying to not talk about Pablo Escobar.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But that's where they get the Ernesto Escobedo guy.
Right, exactly.
Right.
It's like, come on, guys. Let's just
and it was and again, if I remember right, in the book when it was declassified or whatever however he got the information, it was again they went into the detail of the army units that went in and helped hunt this guy down. And that was back in the time when this movie came out. That was in a time when you really didn't talk about it and you didn't have the internet to go find stuff anyway about the special operations groups in the United States military, right? I mean, there were elements that were used that they probably don't, I don't think even to this day, I don't think they can confirm or deny the existence of these guys, you know?
Well, you gotta change the names to protect the guilty.
Exactly.
Right.
Like that one movie about Adolf Schmittler.
That one.
Yeah.
It's a classic.
I mean, it's based on a true story, but the names are entirely coincidental.
And his girlfriend, Eva Green.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and with this, I would like someone, well, you don't have to go too far to find someone more intelligent than me, but I mean, I would like someone that kind of knows about world affairs and all that kind of stuff. To write the podcast, email the podcast and set us straight on the whole thing. But I wonder how much this movie plays differently 30 years on.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, back then, yeah, if you say you're sending in a covert group and assisting a government and then escalating the number that are going in there, this is still not even 20 years from the end of the Vietnam War. And like what they saw at the Senate oversight thing, I think was the thought, right? Like that idea of the military conducting covert operations. Now, that being said, 30 years on, when we're in the last couple of years, we wound down the war in Afghanistan and the war on terror. And you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but I want to say that happened under the Bush administration, and then it was continued under Obama and administrations following, was that idea that you could do what you needed to do to prosecute the war on terror. And okay, how do you define where the limits of the war on terror? So I believe some of the legislation concentrated power in the president to kind of declare war and commit, assets to the government, different soldiers and naval personnel and Marines and all that, airmen, commit them to action, but not have to worry about it being snuck around Congress. Do you know what I'm saying? Like I'm not saying it's more prevalent now, but it just seems that. And I want to say like our special operations have become that much more integrated and just that much more skilled, having been used so extensively during the Gulf War, the Iraq War, and the Afghanistan War. I don't know if that whole idea of like the secret war, I don't know. Does that make this movie seem that much older, that there was that much more of the cover up and hush up and we're not going to tell anybody? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I think the last 20 years have desensitized, maybe is the word. Mm-hmm. And so people are less sensitive about it. I also think this illustrates, this time was a tipping point where we switched over in the way we fight our wars. You know, it used to be these all-out offensives, but now it's surgical strikes, and I think this was the beginning of that, right? The last. I mean, I'm not saying we didn't commit tons of troops to recent conflicts, but comparatively to other conflicts, the number was much reduced. And I think this illustrates that, how we feel we can be effective in smaller surgical teams.
Well, yeah, and I feel like in terms of movies portraying that, this is towards the beginning of when you get the sense of what these surgical strikes look like to the general public. And, you know, even today with drone strikes and things like that, that this is kind of the beginning of it, not necessarily the first movie that did it, but I feel like this is the early stages of here's what this looks like. You know, it's funny. We had just started to rewatch The West Wing as we were also watching this movie to get ready for the podcast. And it was the president's response in this of like, they present a clear and present danger and we're going to move forward and we're going to wipe them out. And I was watching this maybe within the same 24-hour period as we watched the West Wing episode Post Hoc Ergo Propter Hoc, which is the episode where the president tells Leo McGarry, I'm not frightened. I'm going to blow them off the face of the earth with the fury of God's own thunder. Yeah. So I've got two different examples. And I remember telling my wife, I'm like, people say things like that sometimes. Like, I'm going to blow them off the earth with the fury of God's own thunder. But when the character or the person saying it is a world leader with the actual authority and wherewithal to do so, that's a whole other level of terrifying.
Yeah.
Like, not that you are terrified and afraid of your president of whatever country you're in, but the fact that they wield that much power, that's scary. Like, I know that they need to wield that much power in world affairs and whatnot, but like the fact that somebody can say that and then back it up, like, yep, that's a little terrifying.
Yeah.
Well, and then in the context of the Jed Bartlett character, there's even more to that statement. Not that this is a West Wing podcast, but like the fact that he would even dare to say that,
right,
lends even more gravity to that, because that character's faith is so important to him.
Yeah,
that for him to say that is even more like.
Yeah. All right, before we go into three questions here in a moment, is there anything about this movie that does not work for you? Is there a spot where this movie falls short? Any aspects of it?
Short. There's some stuff where the it all kind of centers around that Ryan going down to Colombia with the helicopter, and Clark, like, he walks up to Escobedo's. The pilot that Clark has never sat in that helicopter. There's a lot of no.
Well,
but that's okay in this context of this story. Like, when you say what doesn't work, I don't know. By the time you get to that point in the movie, you're able to rub some of that away.
Yeah.
But,
well, because I think it works for like an action movie.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I think like those things, okay, all right, that works, you know. But if we're going with the book and the comparison to the book, that's exactly it. It's like, okay, this isn't how this is supposed to go. What is going on here? But yeah, I think that's the big thing, is that it works with how rich and how in depth you can go with the book story. With the movie story, it's you kind of simplify for that kind of action, yeah, woo kind of moment, as opposed to something that would be more befitting of a book or a novel.
Yeah.
I mean, just the fact of the deputy director of the CIA going to Colombia without any security. I mean, come on.
Yeah. Yeah, those were some of the moments for me as it seemed to like veer off, like you guys were saying, it veered off from espionage movie to
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden, we've got a couple little, campy is not the right word, but it's like it's almost veered off into, now let's insert some things that could be comedic into this movie. And it was like
we needed to lighten the
helicopter
mood, and I'm not sure why, sort of stuff.
Well, we're going to lighten the mood because we're about to kill a lot of people.
Right.
When you absolutely positively must kill every last person in the compound,
Yeah.
add humor first.
Yes. But I'll say this, for all those scenes that you get where it's like, okay, kind of action movie, you've got those scenes like the ambush on the FBI. Emil Jacobs was like the head of the FBI, right? And their caravan, that hit on them. I mean, that is just a hugely impactful scene. I mean, when they're trying to get for cover and you see his best friend getting like literally gunned down in the street, and then they're at the doorway and okay, they got to move. I mean, it's tense. You're on the edge of your seat, and then it's just like, we've got to move. So the two agents try to put down the covering fire. And just as he gets in the doorway of the Jeep, suddenly he gets shot and he falls out saying, just go, just go, just go. I can rewatch that scene 1,000,001 times and never be bored of it. Like, it just is so tense, right? Like, and just sad. So if that's the balance, yeah, it's unfortunate when you're missing characters and missing, they kind of simplify it, but you do get some pretty incredible scenes in this.
Yeah. All right. Anything else you want to say before we jump into 3 questions?
Great movie.
Yeah, love it.
I realized what I should have done, Pat, is I should have replaced the "Pat rejected your question" sound drop with "I do not have a recollection of that, sir" sound drop.
I have no recollection.
Yeah, I have
that
no
was okay. Even that, we were talking about John Clark being more of a Jack Reacher guy.
Yeah.
Even Ritter in this movie, the Ritter character was kind of reduced to a 1 or 2 dimensional kind of, swirly kind of anti-hero, or anti-hero is, what is it, the antagonist?
Yeah.
And in the books, they develop that character a little bit more. And he's older than Jack Ryan, right? Like, I know in this with Harrison Ford, you get kind of the avuncular, kind of out of touch dad type mad scientist. He gets distracted by things, kind of the way that Jack Ryan is getting played. But I think in the books, he's supposed to be.
Yeah, because he's younger at this point.
He's younger and maybe a little socially awkward with meetings. Like, he'll always like speak up or speak his mind or do whatever.
Yeah, this is still the guy who and I can't remember the timeline in that world that has passed, but it hasn't been 10 years since Red October. This is the same guy who said, I write books for the CIA.
Right.
Like,
right.
The only reason he's even doing what he's doing is because James Greer, shepherds his career along. I mean,
Right. But the Ritter character was supposed to be an older, kind of like
seasoned political operative
spy guy.
Yeah. Right.
And
he's operational. So yeah.
And if I remember right, in the books, there were conflicts between him and Ryan, but it wasn't that animosity you necessarily see here by the little kind of squirrely dude.
I think it was some of the same wording though. Like, Ritter knew how to play in the gray areas, and Ryan has always been, well, to use Ritter's word, a Boy Scout.
Mm-hmm.
So it was similar conflict, but yeah, it wasn't. It was, yeah. I wish I had a better word for it, but you're right. It was different, designed differently, because their ages are flip flop, so it has to be.
Mm-hmm.
And
they articulate. I think part of it too is the way they articulate their worldviews. Mm-hmm. You get the sense of, okay, this is where Ritter's coming from. Oh, okay. It's not just like he's trying to stab Jack Ryan at every turn.
Right.
I mean, there's like a reason that he thinks and acts the way he does.
And I think that's this. Obviously, we're a movie podcast, and now we're talking more about the book, but that's one of the strengths of Clancy's novels, and I think some of it comes from his own experience in working in government is a lot of people who come off as the bad guy aren't bad guy. They just don't necessarily see things the same way you do, so they're going about it differently. Like patriots come in a lot of shapes and sizes. And sometimes the who's right isn't necessarily decided by who's right, but who gets to write the story when it's over.
Right.
And I think he does that really well in the book, and you lose some of that in the way the characters are different in the movie.
Yep.
All right. I think it's time for 3 questions.
He asks each traveler 5 questions. 3 questions. 3 questions.
It's impossible to answer.
Impossible because you don't know the answer.
Nobody could answer that question.
I want to ask you a bunch of questions. I want to have them answered immediately.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
All right, question number 1. Who is your favorite Jack Ryan actor? Is it Chris Pine, Ben Affleck, Alec Baldwin, John Krasinski, or Harrison Ford?
Yes.
More Jack Ryan, more better.
The Friendly Fire guys say the Ben Affleck Jack Ryan.
Really?
Yeah, I don't see it. I need to watch that movie again because I heard them say it and I was like, are you guys daft? But then I was like, no, I need to back that up and I need to go see that movie again because it has been a while.
I'm gonna argue that they said that before John Krasinski played him.
That's true. There you go.
Yeah.
That's a way out of that.
Because I mean, as actors, Alec Baldwin was great in Hunt for Red October. Harrison Ford, I always love Harrison Ford in everything. But I think for the character, I don't have as much exposure to the character as you guys do, having read the books and seen the movies. And you've seen the movies way more than I have. But just from what I've seen of the different actors portraying that character, like some of what Alec Baldwin brings, some of what Harrison Ford brings. I don't recall. I only saw the one with Ben Affleck once, and I've never seen the Chris Pine one. But it seems to me like and we haven't finished all the seasons of the Amazon Prime one with John Krasinski. But what I've seen of that one so far, I'm like, this Jack Ryan seems to me to blend all the characteristics that allow me to believe that not only can this guy be an analyst that sits at a computer and works stuff out with his brain, but also goes charging in when needed into firefights and things like that.
Well, and it's interesting because and I might be way off with this, but I think they seem to say that a lot of those that pulls the Jack Ryan character away from the roots of what they knew him to be. Whereas he is supposed to be the analyst, right? And that whole charging to go into firefights, in their opinion, isn't necessarily what the character is.
Yeah.
Now,
well, so I'm basing that off of only having seen the movies. I haven't read the books.
And again, but I bring it up not because they have the end all be all. They have the say so.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Because it's a very interesting thing because Tom Clancy books are obviously widely read, but I think it's very much a niche thing. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's sort of like, in a way, it's like who's your favorite Batman, but in the same token, but it's different.
Right.
You know, and like I said, they have a very nuanced, reasoned way that they like the Jack Ryan that they like. You know, yeah. So, but again, I don't mean to bring that up as well, John, you're wrong or anything like that. But
you've been Pat-splained.
Yeah. But they
walked right into that one.
Yeah, that was yeah. It's different.
Yeah.
My gut reaction, my heart, I love Harrison Ford, and so it's like, man, well, yeah, the Harrison Ford, these are fantastic movies. then, is that the most representative character of the book? But then the question goes, well, do you want, but this is the movie. So do you want someone that's going to build the movie Jack Ryan, not the book Jack Ryan? You can read the book for that, so I think it's a fun debate, or discussion, I should say, but I don't know that it has like the absolute right or wrong.
Yeah. Well, and Harrison Ford in all of his movies does a great job of being you can see him as being the like nerdy analyst who is shoved into a situation where he's got to defend himself, or he's the president of the United States that can take back his own Air Force One. He does a good job of being the everyman, but the everyman that, all right, well, you've pushed me to the point where now I'm going to kill you myself.
Right.
You get a lot of the Bruce Willis kind of like, how can the same thing happen to the same guy twice?
Right.
All right.
I'm a Baldwin fan.
Oh yeah.
I've always felt that that version is more what the book had him at in Hunt for Red October.
Okay.
The Harrison Ford, a little too Indiana Jones, little too action for me. But part of that, I think, is because the timing has changed, right? Like the books go Red October, Patriot Games, Clear and Present Danger, almost in succession. There's not that much real time that happens there. There's some, don't get me wrong. And I think that's part of why I like the Alec Baldwin character, because he's more, you see the growth a little bit, next time write a memo, but then at the end, he's hawking to the Russian sea cap. It's just, so that's, and some of that, a lot of it has to do with the fact that I'm a huge Red October nerd. So,
Right.
Yeah. All right. Question number 2. Who is your favorite fictional president?
Oh, this was evil, sir.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Evil Phil Hartman made me write it.
I could go all day on this one. So I'm just going to let somebody else start.
That's it. Go talk to her, Ray.
Get her.
All right, John, our fearless leader. Who did you call? Who's your favorite president?
I really enjoy letting Bartlett be Bartlett.
Yeah.
That's probably.
I have a daily double here.
Yeah, I mean that's probably going to be it. And I even like in the back of my mind, I was like, do I do the nerd turn and do the Federation president or something like that? Yeah, I have a couple of runners up. I'll let other people say their first. I think I got to go Bartlett though.
Yeah,
actually, he's just such a great character.
Yeah, he is.
And every time I rewatch that show, it doesn't really matter what decade or year it is. I watch that show and I go, can I vote for him?
Yeah.
I don't really care who else is running. Can I just vote for him?
Do a write-in.
Yeah.
I might just kind of daily double it there, John. I don't know if I got anything. Yeah, Bartlett's awesome president.
Yeah. I mean, I guess he is kind of one of my runners up. I'll let Bo say his before I say any runners up.
Obviously, I had Bartlett on the list, but I knew that was going to be a popular one. So then I went to another Aaron Sorkin president, President Shepard, played by Michael Douglas in The American President.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's some really good stuff there, too.
Yeah.
I have another honorable mention. The movie's already been mentioned once. Dave Kovic. From Dave.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Yeah, my other ones are my runners up. Yeah, Dave was one of my runners up. What was his last name? President Whitmore from Independence Day.
Very nice.
Yeah.
I mean, anybody who can give their St. Crispin's Day speech before going off to fight aliens is I mean, that's pretty cool. So I do enjoy that one. I adapted.
Mr. President, may I ask what you're doing? I'm a combat pilot. I belong in the air.
I actually adapted that speech for my sibling's wedding. So that was one of the speeches I gave at the reception.
There you go.
Outstanding.
It was a combination of different movie speeches. I think it started with marriage and ended with like, "We will not go quietly into the night. We're going to live on." I think I was just doing like famous speeches from movies.
As one does.
As one does and should. Yeah, Dave was one of my runners-up as well. My other runners-up, I think maybe purely from a comedy perspective, I've chosen these two. And the last two that I've chosen here, I'm going to say President, I think his last name was President Dale from Mars Attacks, played by Jack Nicholson.
Jack is good.
I want the people to know they still have 2 out of 3 branches of government working for them, and that ain't bad. And then my last one, and I will read off his entire full name. President Dwayne Elizondo Mountain Dew Camacho from Idiocracy.
Yeah.
Okay.
A president of the United States, let's see, played by Terry Crews. And if you have not seen that movie, if you don't have time right now to go see that movie, at the very least, I highly suggest, first of all, not watching it with your kids. But second of all, go to YouTube and just watch his State of the Union address. In fact, if you want to get a good sense of what that movie is really, really like, all you really have to watch is maybe the first 10 seconds of his State of the Union address, and you'll get a pretty good idea.
That's it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
You know, when he comes in brandishing assault weapons to the State of the Union address, wearing the American flag overcoat, and yeah.
That's kind of when
it's fun stuff. It's fun stuff. No. All right. And I apologize, not really, for the final question as we delve into the podcast within a podcast that is the 30-something food podcast. What's your favorite kind of Mexican food?
Burrito.
Okay. That was quick.
I'd say tacos.
Yeah. Yeah, I really enjoy a good taco. I'm really looking forward to going down to Texas here in about a week or so and enjoying some other good tacos. I will say I did, and I'm trying to remember where we got them, but if you find some really good homemade tamales,
yes,
if done right, no can defend.
Indeed.
Right.
Yeah, I'll pretty much go anything. I'll go tacos, burritos, whatever. But I mean, there's some other really good stuff. One of the breakfast dishes that I know I would often get whenever we would be down in Texas somewhere would be the huevos rancheros.
Oh,
I do enjoy a good huevos rancheros.
Mm-hmm.
Give me pretty much any kind of salsa. In fact, I think right now in the refrigerator and in the cabinet there are approximately 7 different kinds of salsa in our house.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
I pretty much, yes, have some.
Exactly.
Yeah. Favorite dessert, sopapillas, stuff, pastry puffs. They're really good, especially what we would do is we would actually like poke a hole in them and put a little honey on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
That's good stuff.
Yeah.
It also very much explains the diabetes, but,
Yeah, well.
It is what it is. Sometimes one must make sacrifices.
Yes, have some.
Yes, have some.
Hmm.
So, I'm sorry, I pronounced that wrong. It's pronounced diabetes.
Diabetes.
I apologize. I remember a few years ago when my son was really into Fortnite, and I was like, all right, well, if this kid's going to play it all the time, I'll play with him. So like, I'll start my own character and I'll do this other stuff. He laughed so much because I created a character, and my gamer tag for this character was a combination of words that was basically the word die, the word beat, and the word us. And I had it combined in such a way that if read out loud phonetically, it was diabetes.
That's hysterical.
And what was funny is then when I would kill people in the game, the little caption would pop up at the top of the screen, "You've been killed by diabetes."
There it is.
It's like,
See, that's funny.
yeah. You've been shotgunned by diabetes.
That's pretty good.
I was like, man, I know this. I know you can spend money to buy different like characters and outfits and stuff. If they ever release a Wilford Brimley skin, I will pay whatever needs to be paid.
Yeah.
Whatever V-Bucks need to be. I don't know what the exchange rate is, but
yeah, who knows
if
about
you
these
come up
things.
with a Fortnite Wilford Brimley character that I can play with my diabetes screen name, yes, sir.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
And I can help you live a shorter life. All right, gents, I have now made the mistake of loading a website that has a list of Mexican foods. I am staring at a picture of chilaquiles with bacon.
One wonders why you would do something so silly.
At this time of night, I don't know.
Yeah, that
honestly
seems not smart. I'm just going to say it.
I honestly...
Bo, our furry companion, has gone and done something rather rash.
Rather rash.
Yeah. Oh, no. Well, not bad for a little fur ball. There's only a few minutes left. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the 30-something movie podcast and food podcast, as the case may be. For the rest of the month of March, we are in the What Evil Lurks in the Hearts of Men month. Our Patreon episode is Rear Window from 1954. Patreon short is Felidae from 1994. The last couple of weeks we have done The Shadow and Clear and Present Danger. Next week is Natural Born Killers, then The Shawshank Redemption. April is Sci-Fi Month. For Patreon, we're doing Starman from 1984, and our Patreon short is Oblivion from 1994. Regular episodes for that month are Stargate, Star Trek Generations. Who am I to argue with the captain of the Enterprise? Time Cop, and Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. So looking forward to some really, really good movies. Definitely looking forward to the Sci-Fi Month stuff, because some of us are sci-fi nerds around here.
True dat.
Around these parts. And who doesn't love a good destruction of the Enterprise?
Sad but true.
It's in the DNA of every captain.
It kind of is.
We must blow up the ship at some point. So, all right. Thank you, Bo. Thank you, Pat.
Thank you, John.
Everybody,
Thank you, John.
We have tried not to present a clear and present danger to podcasting, but we may have failed. If that's the case, we do apologize. But if not, we'll be back here next week. Not really.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
I like to make a show of it, but But yeah. So we'll be back here next week with Natural Born Killers. And until then, we hope that you all will be excellent to each other. Go watch some good movies, and we'll see you back here next time. And if you happen to have $2 million to buy a helicopter, we also have a Patreon page. I don't know if you know about that, but I figured I'd mention that if anybody's walking around with $2 million to buy helicopters with.
Well, it was a company check, which is a little,
The 30-something movie podcast will take a company check.
Really? From the government? I don't know.
The 30-something movie podcast will take company checks from certain people.
That's better.
There we go.
Because that check's going to bounce.